at me now, for I have sold my soul for gold.
As I get back into doing videos, I'm still working out my direction, but as far as I'm concerned, this is simply me talking about what I enjoy and what I believe in. So I'll start off this video by introducing myself. I am a Christian first and foremost. I love linguistics and studying how languages form and evolve. I see language as an art that we all learn. I am an anarchist. Due to my belief in liberty and freedom, and given my moral convictions, this was a logical conclusion. This is actually the first word I would like to define before I continue. Anarchism is a strange word to me. It's one of those words that isn't so easy to pin down. Ask your average person and you get the typical response that anarchism is about being against the existence of government. They usually have in their heads a Mad Max sort of scenario they believe would happen if anarchism were ever achieved. Well, sure, being anti-government is part of being an anarchist. The question, however, is why? This is where things can get tricky. I've heard the definition that anarchism is anti-hierarchy, though even the waters of that word are rather muddied, as there tends to be a divide as to what a hierarchy even is. Usually anarcho-communists seem to hold that it is specifically the ordering of forceful power, though I do not believe this to be correct. And the dictionary does agree with me here that hierarchy is a structure of the balance of power between people and their groups. I believe that hierarchies in and of themselves are naturally forming. In a group, leaders appear, and one always comes to be the one with the most sway. That is, power. Without leaders, there is no societal cohesion. And I think the ANCOM definition of hierarchy is too restrictive. I've also heard people from my own sphere say that anarchism and capitalism are pure synonyms, that you can't have anarchism without capitalism, because capitalism is anarchism, because you can't have capitalism without anarchism. It's circular reasoning. I've even heard people say that you can't be an anarchist while following a god because that's a ruler. But I argue that if you choose your own ruler and can walk away at any time, that's perfectly acceptable. This brings me to what I define anarchism as. The belief that offensive aggression is against human rights. Period. This leaves us all to choose our own path. Anarcho-pacifists take the core tenet a step further as to advocate against defensive aggression. Aggression being actions taken against another that would revoke them of rights. Offensive aggression are those actions where you forcibly take or attempt to take rights from another, and in such action have given up your rights, and actions taken against you are in defense of one's rights against you, attempting to revoke them of rights, this being defensive aggression. I feel I've explained how I define anarchism well enough, so let's move on. I am a capitalist, but what is a capitalist? What is capitalism? How do you define it? How do I define it? Well, first off, the roots of the name do in fact begin with communism. This is something that can't be denied, though I would argue that the concept itself has existed and has even been widely practiced since the dawn of human history. But because of the original usage of the word, there are those who seem to be under the impression the word never changed and that it's still theirs. A capitalist, in their view, is the owner of the means of production, and capitalism is the exploitation of workers through the hoarding of wealth and theft of their labor value by the capitalist. Exploitation certainly isn't a negative term by itself, but in this instance it is used in the negative sense. This definition was certainly true for a time, though, as with all words, this isn't true in the current linguistic age. I would like to touch on the whole labor theory of value before we move on. This theory hinges on the notion that labor has innate value, or that the value of what was produced is the value of the laborer. But again, this hinges on the notion of inherent value. The problem here is that nothing has inherent value, and value is determined subjectively. I'll be working on a video going into a bit more of an explanation as to how value is determined, but let's continue with this one. The current usage of capitalism and capitalist are different than how they were originally used. Today, capitalism is defined as the ownership of the means of production and the transportation of products being in the hands of the individual rather than by the government. A capitalist is one who believes in an economic system of capitalism. So does this fit with my definition? Pretty much. My belief is property hinges on the idea that only that which is worked or was retrieved through fair trade is legitimate, and I could do a video on this sometime later as well. But that is pretty much it. And I would like to thank you all for watching, and I would like to welcome you to my channel.
I find the answers to questions I have never known.